Peace and love, family. Welcome to U.S. Political Prisoners and You, brought to you by the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition on Black Power Media. If you have not yet subscribed to Black Power Media, please do so. It is our platform. It is a way that we control our own narrative. Right? We are people struggling for our own right to self-determination. And in order for us to do that, we have to control our own narrative. So subscribe to Black Power Media if you haven't, and encourage others to subscribe. This is a channel that needs our support, I need our subscription, and needs us to share with others. So I'm Brother Frank, and I'm with my brother Tariq, and this is U.S. Political Prisoners and You.
Peace, family. I am Tyreek. I am a Black Panther. I'm also a former member of the Black Liberation Army. I spent 17 years in numerous American death camp prisons as a prisoner of war. And especially in these times, we need to be together the way we are now, having the discussion that we are having. So I'm very happy that you are here.
Thank you, my brother. Once again, I appreciate you for coming on to this platform. And I've made a commitment to being available when you can to co-host this show. And you being a former political prisoner, and you knowing Afeni Shakur. Today is part 4 of a 4-part series as we deal with a Women's History Month. And Women History Month is very important because it allows us to be empowered by history, right? The only way we can actually be empowered by history by using that regarding our organized actions around our right to self-determination. So we take what we learned in the past and we apply it to our current situation. So today we're focusing on Afeni Shakur, right? I was doing some research on her and I wanted to find something that would give us an idea of who she is and who she was, right? She's an ancestor now. Uh, and I came across something that kind of that described my introduction to her. And it says, who was Afeni Shakur? Although some might only recognize Afeni Shakur as Tupac's mother and the subject of his 1995 track, Dear Mama, she was also a political activist and philanthropist. While her son rose to fame and is still heralded as one of the most influential rappers in history, Shakur was famous in her own right as a Black Panther who famously rejected outside counsel and defended herself in court against a stack of hefty charges and seemingly unsurmountable odds. Following Tupac's death, Shakur started and ran the Tupac Amaru Shakur Foundation. I related to that paragraph because that was my introduction to Afeni Shakur, Tupac's mother. I did research. I read this book on her that addressed her, and is Look for Me in the Whirlwind, and it talks about the Panther 21. She was one of the Panther 21. She defended herself. She beat her charges. She was courageous. She was disciplined. She was focused. She understood that she had to play her position. In the book and the other book, We Want Freedom, the section on the Women's Party, it talked about her being part of the Harlem chapter of the Black Panther Party, and her not being confident and secure and taking a leadership position, but she was told that they had nobody else, so she accepted that. Other people seen her differently, and I thought that that said a lot to what she was ready to do. She understood that if it was something that had to be done, she was up to the task, regardless of how she felt personally. She looked at the circumstances. She was committed to the Black Panther Party. She loved the organization. She knew what the organization was about, and she knew that she had a very important role, a crucial role in building a strong relationship with the community that would benefit off of it, that did benefit off the free programs, talking about free breakfast programs. They had medical programs, they had educational programs, and a number of things. Not And also, very importantly, was the Black Panther Party newspaper that taught people about what was going on currently and how it directly related to their current situation. So looking at that and examining her playing that position in such an important organization, we understood her passion, her love, her commitment, and her understanding about what it is to be accountable as it relates to the political situation. So my first question to you, my brother, is well, what was your earliest memory of Afeni Shakur?
Well, I met Afeni when I was going to court, and that was quite a while ago. That was in 1974. My co-defendant Ashante introduced her to me. I didn't know her from working uh, with the Panthers in New York City because I was in the Brooklyn chapter and she was in the Harlem chapter, Harlem branch. So I hadn't met her, and I met her in court, and that was in the court was in New Haven, Connecticut. So it was good to see her, see the Panthers coming from New York to New Haven to show support for myself and my comrades, Ashanti Omowale, Michael Ashanti Omowale, and Harold Wallace Simmons. We were arrested in 1974 following a bank expropriation and a shootout with the police. And my comrade was wounded slightly, and two police officers was wounded in that shootout. And I was forced to do those 17 years. But that's when I first met Afeni, and I'm trying to remember now because if she brought Tupac to court with her, because my sister and other sisters have bringing their children with her, and I don't. I'm trying to remember if she brought Tupac with her. It's very possible that she did, though. But it's been quite a while.
Well, it's very I appreciate you reflecting on who she was and the fact that you had this relationship with her politically, and it lets me know that her work, her stance then is still felt now, right? People like you and people like me who look back to her and to her story, read her story, internalize her story. Because I remember reading the book, and she was talking about her life in the South and how she had certain insecurities. And I thought about my mother. I thought about women in my family, and I thought about the struggles that they had. And her being very transparent and that collective autobiography made her relatable. And I think that that's very important because we won't want to see our heroes as being super superhuman beings, right? They just like us. They dealing with their vulnerabilities, their insecurities. Yet and still, they understood that there is uh, a power that exists that they need to confront, that we need to confront, right? A power that controls our self-image, a power that controls our right to food, clothing, and shelter, and how much of it we're going to have, and the quality of it. And once we start to understand that, then we start to understand that we have to take a definitive position when it comes to our politics. We have to connect with those who share those views, and I think that that's exactly what she did. She um, was comrades with people like Namuma Shakur, people like Sekou Odinga. And I think that, that molded her and that advanced her. And she had a lot of respect for Sekou Odinga, and Sekou Odinga had a lot of respect for her. And just being around Sekou and hearing him talk about her admirably, that let me know that this person was a person worthy of respect, and this person was somebody that was serious about what they did. Because Sekou, from my dealings and my understanding of Sekou, he knew people, he studied people, and he knew who was real and who was not real. And he saluted her, and I appreciate him sharing his experiences from being around her and people like her, and allowing me to search and find people who were like that, who was cut from that cloth, because that's what's required to do work around political prisoners, captured freedom fighters, people like Mumia Abu Jamal, people like Kamal Siddiqui. We need people who have love, genuine love, and we need to make sure that we take this message, these ideas to another generation. And that's why these episodes are on Women's History Month, in particular, our revolutionaries, is very important because we're bringing these ideas to an entire new generation and allow them to study this and relate it to the current situation. So, my second question for you, my beloved comrade, is what did Afeni teach you?
Well, Afeni taught me that she taught me by way of her example, and that I could see that she felt that she was in the right place by being a revolutionary, and she could see that from dealing with myself and brother Ali Bey, who was another Panther, whose house we were staying in. Afeni and myself and another sister Panther daughter stayed in a house. The house was owned by Ali Bey and Susan Bey, and I could see from that Afeni felt that she was in the right place by being a revolutionary, and that she was going to let me know by way of example that she was doing her work and she intended to do her work, and she felt that doing her work was the right thing. That's what Afeni communicated to me from her behavior, So that was a very good thing to feel. I last saw her in court before I went to prison, and she was like the first Panther. Her and Ali Bey were the first Panthers that I saw when I got out. They came to pick me up and brought me to the house, so that was good to see them, to see her, and see Ali Bey, and it was good to be with the Black Panthers, staying with the Black Panthers. We stayed in the same house, and of course, I was totally committed. Ali Bey was totally committed, and I could see that Afeni was totally committed. So, by way of her example, that's what she taught me that the best way was to be a revolutionary and to be totally committed to the revolution.
Actually, when I hear you talk about that, and I think about our relationship, me being around you for a number of years, you sharing your publications, you sharing your experiences, and very much in detail. I realized that those lessons that you are giving me came from her, and I am in deep gratitude for that because I'm understanding what it means to be a serious revolutionary, that there's going to be setbacks. You're going to deal with a number of contradictions. Some contradictions are reconcilable, some are not, right? But yet and still, you know that this is part of what is going on to deal with this matter. It's not a sexy life. It's not an easy life. It's not a popular life, right? It's a life of principle. It's a life of accountability. And so when I hear you talk about her and I hear you share those lessons with me, it aids in my development. And I have that responsibility to take that on to another generation, to let that other generation know that these are my experiences, this is my mentality, and this is what I'm committed to doing. That's why, you see me in Queensbridge every Thursday from the hours of 6 to 8, dealing with grief, right? Part of a grieving support group. And I do that as an example of commitment, of focus, of love on behalf of our captured freedom fighters. Because our captured freedom fighter was out in the community. They was doing the work. They were engaging the community, letting the community know that, listen, this is a resource that you have. It is for you if you are ready for it. But it's not to be on the sideline watching things happen, making an analysis of something, but never having a solution. Afeni Shakur was about a solution. She was solution based, just like you are solution based when you write, when you do an analysis. And her lessons, her examples, her teachings taught you, and you teach me that. And so I'm in gratitude, but my gratitude is always expressed in my deeds, my action, and that's why I'm committed to doing this podcast to raise awareness about our political prisoners, to encourage those who have not yet written to a political prison to do so. And let's exchange ideas on what it means to write to a political prisoner. Let's exchange the writings that you written to a political prisoners, and the writings that they wrote you back in return. Because once we start to get into this dialogue about exchanging ideas to a political prisoner, the political prisoner become real. They have concerns, they have issues, they have moments of joy, moments of pain, moments that we can relate to while we're in the so-called outside world, so-called free world, because we have to deal with the reality that we're fighting to control our own destiny. Before I go into the next question, I want to share this poem, right? Share this poem. It's on page 5 to page 6, or from Look for Me in the Whirlwind, the collective autobiography of the Panther 21. It's called The Lesson, Afeni Shakur. Malcolm woke up and saw what appeared to be a mountain of liberation. Then he was murdered. Martin started up that mountain and found there was beauty and lasting peace. He was murdered. Huey went all the way up and came down again to speak to the world of the solidarity there. He was shot and kidnapped. Eldridge saw my desire to go up and showed me the rugged path. He was forced into exile. Bobby took my hand to lead me there, and I found the way rough and exhilarating. And of course, he was gagged, beaten, and chained. Fred overheard their directions and took to the hills for a closer look. What he saw made him go back down to share his happiness. When he came back in the valley, all I could hear him say was, I am a revolutionary. But it made no sense. And so I just sat and listened. The next day, I heard him repeat this melody as he prepared the morning meal for my child. I heard the words, and still I was quiet. Fred didn't seem to mind. He just kept doing things and singing his song. And then one day, the melody of his song was taken up by the evil winds of human destruction. They heard his message and handed to him the salary of a people's servant. Kaboom! The air that breathed his message to me was alive with urgency. The mountains became a reality, the tools became friends, the curves became mere objects of jest. I could sit still no longer. I began to hum his song as I climbed. As I fell and got up and fell again, I sang the song of liberation. I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary. So that was a poem
Yeah.
by Afeni Shakur.
And that reminds me of when Feeney and I used to talk. One of the things that she used to ask me about was my time in prison. And I would tell her, but the message that I wanted to communicate to her that was that she would be able to survive the different tortures that they subject her to, subject revolutionaries to, and she would be able to survive because she was a revolutionary. And her belief would enable her to go through whatever they would have subjected her to. And I hope I communicated that to her because from seeing that, I could see that she had went on in spite of them killing Malcolm X, in spite of them killing Martin Luther King, and in spite of them killing Fred Hampton, Afeni went on. And I think still she had the question in mind, would she be able to deal with the hangman face to face? And I tried to communicate to her that she was a true revolutionary and that she would be capable of successfully experiencing anything that they would subject her to because she was a true revolutionary.
Yeah, reading that poem lets me know her passion, her concerns, and her understanding of the reality that comes with being a serious, committed, professional revolutionary. And that poems allowed me to understand that she was always thinking ahead and ready and prepared to accept what comes along with the task that she took on.
And she was letting it be known that, as Malcolm said, the price of revolution is death. One has to be willing to die or be killed in order for to liberate ourselves and to liberate our loved ones, our families, so that they won't have to be subjected to the things that we have been subjected to all these hundreds of years. And once we are willing to give our life, as the supreme leader did in Iran, set the proper example for those who were following him. Once we are of that frame of mind, then we will be free, and our families and our loved ones will no longer be subjected to the cruelties and the inhumanities that we are being subjected to.
Hearing you say that made me reflect on my first time of dealing with the reality that death is possible when you accept the responsibility of being a revolutionary. Is when I read George Jackson. That's when my consciousness went to that level, and I understood the possibility of that. And but I look at a mother, I look at a father, look at a parent. When it comes to their children, when it comes to something that they love very deeply, intensely, they're ready to put it all on the line. And I think that that's revolutionary's relationship to their nation, to their community, to their people. Is understanding that when all else fails, and the conditions are made to organize the people, then I have to take a position within that organizational structure. And my way of thinking and my understanding and my relationship to our oppression leads me to be in a position to confront the state. And me and confront the state, me being a threat to states, putting my very existence, or at least our understanding of our existence at this moment in time, in jeopardy. And I have to be willing to put that on the line if I really want to do this work seriously. So she understood the risk. She understood what could possibly happen, but yet and still she performed her duty as good as she did. And even in 2026, we think about her, and we think about her example, and we think about how we can utilize that. Well, we have to struggle for food, clothing, shelter. We have to struggle against ICE. We have to struggle for the best of anything, right? In a world that puts profit over people. My next question is, what would Afeni's position be in 2026 around our political prisoners? Because obviously this is a platform that we focus on political prisoners. It obviously, it's called U.S. Political Prisoners and You. So her being a former political prisoner, her understanding how the state operates, how can her example be utilized in 2026?
But she was a good example, and she survived those 19 months that the Panther 21 was locked up. And as we know, the authorities locked up the Panthers, and they said that the Panthers was going to bomb ASC, a shop area that's frequently frequent by Black people, and they said that the Panthers were going to bomb botanical gardens. But basically, they held the Panthers in the jails for 19 months to say that the Panthers were crazy people and that they should be avoided. But now I'm sure that all the persons presently know who the crazy people are and who should be avoided. And so Afeni, I'm sure she had from being with other persons, she was able to see the persons that were Black Panthers, and she was able to see them under the pressure that they were under, and see that they still went forward. And so I'm sure that if she were alive today, she would have a high regard for political prisoners, and she would be joining us to encourage everyone to have a high regard for political prisoners, and she would be encouraging everyone to support political prisoners in any way that you can. If you can write letters, or if you can contribute money, or if you could take a package to the post office or something like that, all of that's appreciated, and every little thing that's done to further the liberation struggle is appreciated. And I'm sure that if Afeni were here to see persons contributing and doing what they can, she would show that she appreciate that, and she especially would show that she have a high regard for the Black Panthers who are political prisoners.
Absolutely. So I think that we have that responsibility, right, to carry on her legacy. We should read and study this book that I read on her life that I just talked about, the collective autobiography of the Panther 21. It allowed me to look at her life in a way where she was just like everybody else, and allowed me to understand who I am, and where am I at? How do I relate to the conditions of my people? And if I respect those who came before me, then I'm going to be a part of some organized action. I'm going to write to a political prisoner. I'm going to have discussions online around political prisoners. I'm going to do what is necessary to raise awareness about political prisoners. And when I'm able to do that, and when I do that, I'm seeing who I engage with, right? Sometimes, you're doing certain things and you might not get the response that you desire, right? But that doesn't mean you stop. You stand on principle. you might be the only one advocating for something at a particular time. But as you become more consistent, others start to see you, and that raises curiosity, right? Because you are part of somebody's regular routine. If I come around you and I'm talking about free political prisoners, and we on the same bus route every day, right? Because you have a 9 to 5, I have a 9 to 5, and we see each other, and eventually you're going to ask me a question, and when you ask me that question, I'm going to talk to you about it, and the message might not go to another level in your mind, right? But yet you might share that message with somebody else. And we have to use our own creativity. We have to understand that we are a vehicle with a message. And this message is going to find its way to somebody who shares that same passion, that same desires, that same concern, right? Because that must be a concern, or at least we have to struggle to make our political prisoners a concern to all people that we come across that has a serious desire to change social conditions, a serious desire to address injustices. Because our captured freedom fighter is injustice, right? Because those are people who stood up to the state, who said that these people have a right to self determination, they have a right to food, clothing, shelter. You don't have a right to exploit their labor for your desire to make profit. And in doing so, you are creating an oppressive condition for them. So when we understand that reality and we understand the life and the times of Afeni Shakur, we feel inspired. Feel inspired to know that somebody before us came and they were addressing these issues, and they left us a body of work. And they were not hiding anything from us. It was known, and um, even other people like me and you talk about, she had an addiction. She addressed her addiction. Tupac Shakur spoke about her addiction on his song "Dear Mama." So she understood that she couldn't lie to the people. Emil Khalil Cabral says, "Tell no lies, gain no easy victories." Right?
Tell no lies and claim no easy victory.
Yeah, yeah. Tell no lies and claim no easy victories. So I think she was a manifestation of that, and to show appreciation for her, we need to conduct ourselves accordingly, right? Sometimes we have issues, we have problems, we don't want to be as transparent as we should be, but how do we relate to people? That's at least what comes to mind when I reflect on Afeni. What comes to mind when you reflect on Afeni?
Well, what comes to mind is that if she were here today, she would tell us to stand firm, even in light of the oppressor aggressively attacking us. We just have to stand firm and be committed to what we say we're committed to. And we don't have to make a whole lot of noise or nothing. Just stand firm and make the contributions that you have been making. If you've been given $1, keep giving $1. If you've been going to the store, keep going to the store. If you were standing firm, stand firm, and that's what comes to mind when I think of Afeni at this time.
Absolutely. So it's like you have people like Mumia Abu Jamal. I thought that he did an incredible job when he wrote "We Want Freedom," and he had that section that talked about Women's Party, and he made sure he spoke about Afeni Shakur. I know that Jamal Joseph always speaks highly of her, and how he was taught by her, and he credits her with a lot of his development. And just to have somebody, a male, say that, right? And sometimes there's this perception of brothers not wanting to listen to or take leadership from sisters, but that's not necessarily the case from all brothers, right? You have brothers like him, brothers like you, brothers like me, who understood. There are some sisters, just like there's some brothers that are exceptional leaders, and when it's time to follow their leadership, it should be done without no hesitancy, because they have that credibility to take on leadership, and their credibility speaks for itself, because there's others who validates them, and unless you know that this person is who they are, or who they say they are, right? And so they have a lot to offer you. And Jamal Joseph spoke about her and spoke about her teaching him, and I think that when we look at who he is, uh, we have to credit that to her, because obviously, you can't be who you are without having a good teacher, a great teacher. So her example is commendable. Her example is an example that we respect, and we need to utilize that when it comes to the fight to free our political prisoners.
And
For
as
your
you
closing words.
and as you know, Afeni acted as her own lawyer during the Panther 21 case. And so she thought of herself as intelligent. She did not have a doctorate degree, but she thought of herself as intelligent. And then she had the courage to go forward. No one, the enemy may be all this and that, but no one is more courageous than you are. Once you say that you're going to do something, stand firm, you will stand firm. And you want to know that you may doubt if you have enough courage, but you want to know that the enemy is putting on a show of having all this exaggerated courage. And so you just stand firm, and the enemy will see that you really have courage, and you don't have to do much. Just stand firm like a phoenix stood firm.
That being said, we're gonna sound off. What's the call?
Free them all.
What's the call?
Free them all.
What's the call?
Free them all.